The military courtroom buzzed with tension as Lieutenant Commander Sarah Hayes was led inside, her wrists bound in cold steel. She walked upright, her bruised face unflinching, her Navy SEAL uniform sharp and spotless. The audience, filled with officers, reporters, and curious onlookers, couldn't believe their eyes. This was no ordinary soldier. Sarah Hayes was a legend, a sniper with unmatched precision, credited with saving over 30 lives in combat zones. But today, she stood accused of insubordination and assaulting a senior officer. Gasps echoed across the room. Murmurs grew louder. Is this real? What happened? Why would a war hero be in chains? There were no answers, only confusion and disbelief. Sarah said nothing. She kept her eyes forward, her expression calm, even as the judge glanced at her with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Cameras clicked. The silence was thick, almost painful. To the world, she had been a symbol of courage and duty. But today, she was being treated like a criminal. Her medals weren't displayed. Her accomplishments weren't mentioned. Just the charges, cold, formal, and incomplete. Everyone expected a scandal. A fall from grace. But deep down, something didn't feel right. This wasn't arrogance or defiance. There was something more behind Sarah's silence. Something powerful, untold. And in that moment, before a single witness had spoken, one question haunted every mind in the courtroom: what kind of truth would force a hero like her to break the rules she once swore to uphold? Flashback to a dusty military base on the outskirts of Kandahar, Afghanistan. The sun beat down on the tents and armored vehicles, but inside the camp, something far darker was unfolding. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Hayes stood frozen for a second as she witnessed a high-ranking Allied commander, drunk with power, grab a frightened Afghan girl by the arm near the supply depot. The child couldn't have been more than 10. Her eyes were wide with fear, her tiny frame trembling. Sarah's instincts kicked in. She rushed over, barking at the man to stop. He laughed and shoved her aside, snarling, "This is none of your business, soldier." But Sarah wasn't just any soldier. She stepped between him and the girl, her voice firm and unshaken. "Let her go. Now." When he raised his hand to strike the girl, Sarah acted. A swift punch to his jaw dropped him to the ground. The girl ran, disappearing into the safety of the medic tents. Around them, stunned soldiers froze, unsure whether to intervene. Orders were orders, but Sarah had crossed a line. She hadn't just defied a superior officer, she had humiliated him in front of others. That night, she was summoned. No one asked why she did it. No one mentioned the girl. Only formal words: assault, insubordination, disgrace. But Sarah knew, in that moment, she had done what was right. And if protecting a child cost her everything, she was ready to face the consequences. Even if they came in chains. Back in the Virginia courtroom, tension hung heavy like a storm about to break. The prosecutor rose, his voice cold and composed, laying out the charges with mechanical precision. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Hayes assaulted a superior officer during a joint operation and willfully disobeyed direct orders. Her actions jeopardized international relations and military discipline. Sarah sat motionless, hands still cuffed. Her gaze remained steady, though her eyes carried the weight of someone who'd already been judged by the world. The defense lawyer barely spoke, as if afraid to challenge the military machine. The judge's expression was unreadable, neutral, yet distant. The prosecution painted Sarah as reckless, impulsive, a risk to her unit. Not a single word about the girl she saved. Not one question about why she acted. Sarah finally spoke, her voice calm and even. "I knew what it would cost me. I'd do it again." A hush fell over the room. Her words weren't loud, but they cut deeper than any accusation. Some in the gallery shifted uncomfortably. A few lowered their eyes. Outside, the sky darkened. Inside, it felt like hope was slipping away. No allies had come. No one from her former unit showed. The judge glanced at the clock. It looked like the verdict would be swift. Then, without warning, the heavy courtroom doors creaked open. Every head turned. Boots echoed on the floor as a man in full uniform stepped inside, his presence commanding instant silence. On his shoulder gleamed 4 stars. An admiral. And the room froze. All eyes locked on the tall, silver-haired figure who had just entered. Admiral Jonathan Collins, one of the most respected names in the U.S. Navy, walked with quiet authority, his face unreadable. The judge's posture straightened. Even the prosecutor paused, visibly unsettled. "I'd like to address the court," the admiral said calmly, his voice echoing with power and purpose. The judge, after a moment's hesitation, nodded. "Proceed." Admiral Collins stepped to the witness stand and looked directly at Sarah. A flicker of emotion passed through his eyes. Then he turned to the court. "This woman," he began, "once led a mission that saved my son's life in hostile territory. That alone should earn her our gratitude. But that's not why I'm here." He pulled a file from his briefcase and placed it on the table. "I learned of this trial yesterday and immediately requested an investigation into the so-called victim of her actions, the Allied commander she struck." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "That man was under internal review for multiple allegations of abuse, including exploitation of civilians, children." The same behavior. Lieutenant Hayes stopped. A ripple of gasps filled the room. "She didn't disobey her oath," the admiral continued. "She fulfilled it, by protecting the innocent when others stayed silent. She honored the uniform when others disgraced it." Sarah's eyes shimmered. For the first time, someone spoke the truth out loud. The entire courtroom sat still, stunned, no longer seeing a criminal, but a hero who had stood alone. Until now. The silence was absolute. Then slowly, the judge leaned forward, his voice more reverent than judicial. "All charges against Lieutenant Commander Sarah Hayes are dismissed, effective immediately." Before anyone could react, Admiral Collins walked over to Sarah, reached down, and gently removed her handcuffs himself. The chains clinked to the floor. She blinked, barely holding back the emotion rising in her throat. He looked her in the eye and said, "You did the right thing, Lieutenant. This country owes you. I owe you." The courtroom, still stunned, rose to its feet. A wave of applause followed, hesitant at first, then thunderous. Officers who had once turned their backs now saluted. Even the judge stood, offering a respectful nod. Sarah placed her hand over her heart. But inside her pocket, folded and worn, was the photo of a little Afghan girl with wide brown eyes, the one she protected, the one no one in that room had ever met. She walked out of the courtroom not as a disgraced officer, but as a symbol of moral courage, of what it truly means to serve. And as the doors open to the bright afternoon sun, the voiceover speaks. "They put a hero in handcuffs, because she chose compassion over command. But in the end, truth walked through those doors, and justice stood to salute her." Sarah didn't need medals. She had something greater, the knowledge that one life, saved in silence, was worth every battle she had to fight.